Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap. It is Wednesday. It is the 17th. More pulling back, broadly speaking, in the market. Nothing too crazy, down 0.65 on the S&P 500, but just kind of continuing that little pullback that we've kind of seen develop over the course of this week, which is pretty exciting for pullback opportunities, right? Probably okay for some bearish opportunities as well. There's a lot more bulls and bears out there right now, I think, but we definitely have seen some bears pop their heads up this week. So good afternoon, Patricia. Hi, Fortino. Linda, great to see you guys as always. Earnings season's always interesting. Yet CSX miss on earnings before the open here today, and they drug the entire industry down with them. All of the railroads down pretty big here today, as you can kind of see. Union Pacific, NSC, Norfolk Southern, KSU, all of them down following the lead of CSX, who, pretty disappointing when it comes to the report. That's earnings season for you. On the other side, you had CTOS really jump up, ABT break and hit a new all-time high. On the earnings front, as we speak this afternoon, we've got some interesting names. Netflix, I guess it was a complete swing and a miss on subscriber growth. The little CNBC article I was reading right before I hopped on here said I think the number was 2.7 million versus an expectation of 5. Earnings look like it beat flat on revenue, but subscribers was a huge miss. They were down over 10% in early after hours trading. IBM was up a little bit in the post market after a little bit of it looked like a kind of a mixed bag, but I didn't get enough time to really dig too much into it. KMI, eBay, URI, just over a half a dozen S&P companies reporting here tonight. And then, of course, another big wave here tomorrow morning. And hey, Jimbo, hi, Ilka, great to see you. Are you out yet, Ilka, or have you not left for your trip yet? So over tomorrow, another big round. UNH, really good run, right? This last week, we'll see how that earnings report impacts that. Honeywell, Philip Morris, another railroad, Union Pacific. Boy, heaven help us if it's another huge miss over there. Boy, that might be ugly. It really didn't do the industrial sector ETF any good with all of that selling in railroads today. So another big round of earnings here tomorrow. We're there, right? We are there. So so there you go, Jimbo. As you look at the S&P, more continuation. We kind of saw that downward movement, on yesterday after the close. Really just continued going on into today. Still in that downward stretch on the intraday. So the pullback, at least when you look at an intraday chart, there's nothing on this chart that says the pullback has to be over tomorrow. It might be, but right now we are definitely seeing the sellers in charge on the shorter term, drifting down as well on that hourly. There you go, my friend. We'll appreciate you being here one more day. So a little more drift, as you can see here on the hourly time frame. On the daily time frame, I think Uber bulls would have liked to see it hold 3,000. Fair enough, a fair expectation, I suppose, but that didn't give us much room for any sort of real pullback, right? Whatever it's worth, that did give out here today, as did the 9 EMA. I'm going to be watching that 2950, but kind of as that line in the sand, so to speak. But anywhere here, between these two moving averages, if we start to see some sort of momentum shift on the intraday, some sort of turnaround type of candle, like a doji or whatever, at this point, I still believe this is a pullback. I don't believe there's any reason to think otherwise personally, but that is, of course, just my take. But I don't think that it's telling us that tomorrow morning is the day that the pullback is over based off of the price action that we have been seeing so far the last couple of days this week. Same story over in the Dow, not much different. These charts are very, very similar, as you guys all know. So still kind of in that pullback phase. The bears are in control of those very short-term trends, and that's fine. That's fine. They can have their fun. That's going to give us a nice pullback opportunity. And along the way, the few bears that we have in our portfolio are probably having a good couple of days to start the week. So you are in Finland. Nice. Well, hello, Finland. Welcome out. So, same story over in the Dow. Not a lot to see here. Selling over in the NASDAQ as well. Definitely want to keep an eye on this breakout point. It doesn't have to hold, but boy, if we're able to hold there and see some sort of turnaround, that would be a pretty interesting little signal for the bulls. We've got a little bit of room, right? We've got a little bit of room before we're testing it. It's not a bearish signal, in my opinion, if it breaks. More so, it's a bullish signal if it holds, I guess, if that makes any sense. And hey, Micah, great to see you. And I saw you were in Japan. Is that right, Micah? I saw your comment right after we were done yesterday. I missed it. But I know you were far, far away. So you're a diehard. I appreciate it. So my power went off early this morning. So the start of the market day, I was in the dark. That is why you have automated orders. It felt weird though for the first 30 minutes of the day, just wondering what's going on. I can't do anything about it. So awesome, Mike. And hey, I mean, good to see you, buddy. So keep an eye on the breakout point as a level of support potentially. Again, these short-term moving averages, now we're kind of testing and bouncing around these 9s. 20s kind of that next line. No real trend changers though, in my opinion. Just unless we're talking intraday, which in intraday, the bears are definitely in control right now. A little bit more selling over in the rut, finally coming out of this little range that's been kind of hanging around these last couple of weeks. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that necessarily, but it did happen. I'm still keeping these guys neutral within this broader range. A little bit of selling is not going to really change my opinion of that at this point in time. Of course, support, our swing support, is way down here at around 15.15. So there, if we put in a higher low, we'd have to say that's a little bit of a bullish signal. If that breaks, then we'll start to be worried. It's a ways away, which is the downside if we're thinking about, managing condors after a support break. But it is what it is, right? It's a ways till we get to support. But overall, I'm still calling this neutral. In a pullback day like today, pretty much it was, throughout the rest of the market, most areas were pulling back kind of top to bottom, and certainly the material sector, no exception. Right now, we've got a pretty good idea of where support is, right? We did see silver break out all the way up to $16 today, for goodness sakes. I saw some of the Wheaton Precious Metals, not an S&P company, but huge breakout on Wheaton, but just not quite there yet. Our breakout candidates still aren't breaking. They're still not winning those battles at resistance. Don't think there's any reason to change my opinion of being interested in a bullish breakout on ECL, but it's not looking like it's happening tomorrow at the very least. Right now, we do have a little bit of selling pressure going on over in the materials, and that's okay. That really is. I love when things go sideways for a while and then break out. I don't mind a good 2-3 weeks of boredom or even longer before we get a breakout personally. Regardless of what I like right now, the bears are pretty much, broadly speaking, in control of the material sector. Got to be looking for some sort of signal to swing that momentum. As long as we're holding our support down at 57, I am okay. That gives out, we're going to probably have to have a much different talk. And hey, Scott, good to see you, my friend. Energy continuing to sell. It's been a rough week for energy bulls and a really good week for the energy bears, of course. We're testing a support level. This is, in my opinion, a fairly important level of support. If this thing does give out, I would call that a bearish signal. If it holds, that's what my expectations are. It's been kind of stuck in this range for a bit now. I expect it to try to hold, and we're having conversation we're sideways again, but that is just based off of history. If it does break, I think you have to give it a little bit of a downgrade or a bearish upgrade, if you want to call it that. That's really the support zone that pretty much at least all of us can be looking at in the short term when it comes to XLE. Weakness in XEC, of course, continuing to slide after breaking down either Monday or Tuesday. APA, another one breaking down here today. Definitely some weakness, but it's not just breakdowns galore, and something that we kind of have to keep in mind within energy. We're seeing some weakness, but you have things like Chevron, or I'm sorry, Exxon here, much like the ETF. These guys are really good. If you are wanting to trade the ETF but want a stock, I think Exxon's the stock for you. It looks almost identical, at least to my eyes, to the XLE ETF. So hanging right at a support level, but hasn't given out yet. Chevron, of course, still kind of in a pullback at that resistance level. So it's still very undecided, but we're getting close to some support. Breaks of support certainly would be a sign of weakness and more selling for me, at least. Let's see how this battle goes. This should be an interesting one. Over in the financials, more selling here today, kind of caught up with the overall market. Not really a concern. I think overall the financials, we could argue that the bar was set low, and that's why the financial companies have done okay on earnings. I don't really know or care, to be quite honest with you. It beat earnings, and now we're waiting for price action to kind of give us some signals to the upside. Got a little bit of a pullback going on somewhere down here. If we can see a little bit of turnaround somewhere around that 20, that would be pretty interesting. A lot of the banks have done okay on earnings. So I'm still looking at it overall from a bullish perspective. Our old friends Ally are reporting, not an S&P company. I think they're tomorrow morning. Took a long time for them to break out, right? You guys probably remember them from the stock report, like 2 months ago. Took them for, I think they were in the report right here and didn't break out till here. They've got some earnings, so certainly lots of earnings left to go in financial. Broadly speaking, I'm still looking at this as a pullback opportunity. If we squeeze into a weekly time frame, it kind of lets us know that we're still in this upward trend. We're just consolidating, right? On a bearish candle, not looking like tomorrow is the day for the turnaround to happen, but I will be watching for a retracement overall, some retracement signals overall in financials as well. Industrials, it looks a little worse than it is. On one hand, we of course CSX missing earnings here today, and it was just on. It was just on. Huge gap down, continued to fall, huge spike of volume. It, of course, made its way into the other railroads. KSU, hey, they did nothing wrong but be a railroad today. They've got a couple of days and then they can redeem themselves with their earnings. Norfolk Southern. So really, whoops, wrong ticker symbol. Well, there we go. Try that one more time. And SC, there we go. That works better. Hanging right at support with earnings coming up next week. So it was really heavily driven by this huge sell-off in the railroads, at least in my mind. But regardless, our ETF certainly got beat up pretty good here today. We have to keep an eye on this support level. We have seen, at least in my opinion, we've seen way too much price action. That thing gives out. That probably means it's gone beyond the railroads, or more railroads have reported and they've been equally as bad. I don't know. It seems like that was a pretty bad report, but who knows? So keep an eye on 76. If we pull back into the support level and see some upward movement, that's where I think we look for bullish opportunities off of the support bounce. As the break's always on the table, right? But I think we can look to support bounces at this price zone around 76.50 if we get us some signals, a little bit of upward movement. Right now, that's not pretty, right? But really, it was pretty much the railroads that were the biggest contributors, although HON had a pretty big sell-off ahead of its earnings here tomorrow morning as well. But for the most part, 3M looking very similar. We figured that was going to be a battle, right? Looking at that weekly chart, that swing resistance level, UTX down. So everything was caught up in it. But as you saw, the biggest movers in the day were within the railroad industry. Still a few names to report on earnings. I think we have to be careful right now. The bears, again, whatever the reasons are, or I think that they are, they took a pretty big win today. Didn't break support. That's my bearish signal. Very interested in support bounce if we get it, but that's not realistically happening tomorrow. So I'm going to be very careful with industrials tomorrow if anything happens to catch on my radar. Just a little more pullback over in tech, much like the NASDAQ, much like the broad market. Really not a lot to see here so far, just a shallow little pullback, not even testing the 9 EMA just yet. Of course, we've got Microsoft coming up. Are they Friday before the open? Yeah, I think they're Friday, or maybe they're tomorrow after the close. They're either tomorrow afternoon or after the close, or Friday before the open. So some big names in tech yet to report, but overall looking like a pullback opportunity as of right now. Keep an eye on this zone, anywhere from really around that 79.50 into that $80 range as kind of that support zone. At least that's where my eyes will be looking on the pullback side of things. Held up okay today. Another day, another doji over in the staples sector. A little more, selling in a little bit more of the aggressive areas. We held up a little bit better in some of the more conservative sectors. Really, just more of the same. A little bit of a doji party going on this week on XLP. Not showing a lot of movement either way, but holding up very nicely. So Thursday after the close, thank you, Ilka. I knew they weren't before tomorrow's open, and I knew they were before the end of the week, which made them Thursday or Friday morning. So thank you. So just a little bit more of the same over in the staples. Trends are still there. Just caught up in a little bit of a consolidation period right now over in staples. Took a run at the resistance level over on XLU earlier in the trading day. Didn't win that fight. Everybody here knows my take on utilities. I think that break is where our next signal is. There are some interesting developments, kind of going on. You got a little bit of a consolidation on something like a knee, not Duke here. A little bit of a pullback, kind of an ugly one, but a little bit of a pullback on knee. So you can kind of see pretty decent little pullback on SO. If we could break and see some upward break on the ETF, some upward movement on the stock or chart that look like this, that'd be interesting to see. I still need the break of resistance. As you can kind of see here, most of these charts, the Duke and the EXE kind of been stuck in these weird areas, sideways ranges, SRE kind of a little bit of a, maybe a cup and handle-y type of pattern forming, although that's maybe getting ahead. So things are looking very much like they have been but it just feels like it's kind of gone sideways to me, at least. And for me, it's that break. That break is that next signal. The trends, most of the charts look basically the same as they've looked for the last month. Some of the lesser performers kind of stuck in their middle, the better performers kind of ranging up at the top. So until we get a break, I'm going to continue to kind of hold the course, fine with where I'm at in anything that I do own in utilities, waiting for a break before I do anything new over in the sector. So yeah, there you go. So you took that's good, Ilka. I don't blame you. Locking in some profits, getting on that long plane ride, but not having to worry about it. You never have to have an excuse to take some profits in my mind. So over in healthcare, just kind of hanging around. We're really kind of stuck in a range at this point in time. ABT on an okay report. It wasn't lights out, but it was most importantly how the market responds, right? My opinion of someone's report is absolutely irrelevant to everybody but me. The way the market responds to it is what's important. We were able to break above that resistance level. This was one of those where you're always perfect in hindsight. Early, when it broke into that, I figured, one of my favorite things to do on earnings is find things that are breaking through resistance levels running right into resistance levels right on the opening gap up or support levels on the gap down. So it has to kind of make a decision. That's, for some intraday short-term plays, that's my favorite thing to do during earnings personally. And so you can kind of see Abbott, looking at the 15-minute chart, we won't scrunch it down too much further, kind of gapped right into that resistance on the open, pushed through it, and had a really good burst. So of course, when, my power's only off for about a half an hour, but when it came back on, I looked at Abbott and I said, yep, I would have got right in there, of course, because everybody's perfect in hindsight. Whether I would have or not, it doesn't matter. So we were able to break and push through that resistance. You've got, who the heck is it? I'm going to just go into my list because I can't remember their ticker symbol. I threw them up on Twitter. Oh, Merck. There we go. Merck on a little bit of a bearish retracement type of a candidate going on. So healthcare continues to be a place where I do think we have to be careful. We saw UNH. That's a big name. More so in the healthcare plans than the drug manufacturers, biotech, medical devices, but a big name within this ETF. I still think we have to kind of proceed with caution with almost everything that we're doing with healthcare right now, at least until we get a little bit more clarity on that big sell-off, broad sell-off outside of our healthcare plans. Make sure that that doesn't change. I mean, all of a sudden, Merck went from a breakout to a retracement in a couple of weeks, right? So I think we have to be a little bit careful. Of course, UNH and the plans continuing to do very, very nicely. Earnings here tomorrow should be interesting to see. Ilka, your MDT, from your breakout a couple of weeks ago, I would argue breaking out here today. Personally, nice little upward movement. So there's legit bulls and legitimate bears, I believe, in healthcare. I just think, again, the way I'm approaching it, at least, is expecting a little more volatility because of that's kind of how it has been behaving. Not everyone might agree with that, but that's okay. I'll always err on the side of caution. Over on the discretionary, so I can spit that out there. Finally some selling, still closing above the 9. Little bit of a pullback would go a long ways within this space. For me at least, this is certainly an area, but you look at things and you're like, oh yeah, we've got a pullback day. And then you look at some of the strong companies in this area. McDonald's just consolidating. Starbucks, oh yeah, Starbucks is going to have a nice pullback opportunity. Nope, Starbucks just consolidating. Not a whole lot to see here. Maybe Lowe's, right? I know, Jimbo, you brought up Lowe's when we had that one day of selling here last week, and basically 2 days later it broke out. So maybe this is that pullback opportunity here on Lowe's. We still got a ways before earnings on Lowe's. Definitely going in my watch list into later in this week. Again, much like the broad market, I have a very difficult time seeing any scenario where tomorrow I'm getting the signals for buying into something like this. But tomorrow I might get a doji for the signals on Friday, right? Or maybe one more small candle and then a doji on Friday, even better, right? For some upward movement on Monday. But I like where we are overall. Just need to see a little bit of reversal from on the intraday. We've got to get that intraday back into the bullish before the daily can start being on the bullish side of things. I am personally looking at this as a great opportunity as for a bullish retracement within this space. It's not as many as I'd like, but it's only one day in, right? So maybe that's all we get, but maybe we do get a little bit more. I'm excited about some pullback opportunities potentially, but we're going to need a little bit of time. We can certainly watch that 9 EMA so often, something that's very strong. Traders are just looking for an excuse, right? That 9 EMA can be that excuse, but going to need some sort of price development here tomorrow. Real estate just still kind of hanging around. Look like it's trying to make a little pullback, and it still very well might be the way it plays out. Overall, I think that's the most likely scenario, but we've kind of made it ugly, right? It could have been a little different. If this would have finished a green candlestick with some upward movement, we might be knocking at the door of the highs here today, but that's not the way it was meant to be. A little more day-to-day price action here than we've seen so far this week. Again, I still look at this overall as a bullish retracement opportunity on the REITs, but we don't want to be the first one in. You never want to be the first one in, but as soon as it's not a textbook, you really don't want to be the first one in anymore. So we still need a little bit more price appreciation. Keep an eye on that 50. That should be a level that should be very interesting if we do test it for the bulls. But right now we're still in that pullback phase. It's gotten a little ugly, unfortunately, but there's still time for it to change its ways. And lastly, over in XLC here, a little more selling today, so never a bad thing if you're looking for a pullback. We were, did see Facebook kind of working back down a little bit earnings coming up shortly, so it doesn't have much more time for the bulls, at least unless they're going to hold through earnings. Google holding its own, though, certainly a nice thing. We did see a little bit more selling here over on Disney, kind of working back towards that top of that range. It'll be interesting to see if that range is able to hold up for us. Netflix down 13% after hours right now on just an absolute swing and a huge miss, at least from what I read on subscribers. I think 2.7 million was the number and 5 million was the expectation. And if that's close to right, that's a big deal. Keep an eye on this support level if you're following Netflix. As of right now, I mean, this is going to be a tough one to trade tomorrow. This support breaking would have made for an interesting trade. This one breaking, oh my goodness, do we really expect, who knows what to expect? Not anything positive, at least as of right now. Did have EA kind of set up a little bit of a doji if you're interested in the breakdown, a little bit of downward movement. I'm not, but at least it didn't break and run. So at least you have to, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Now you're like me, you have to spend the rest of the afternoon wondering, is this the time I finally trust myself to trade EA? I know the answer to that, but I'll still ask myself that question. So pretty much across the board, it's pullbacks right now. A little bit of consolidation in the staples, hanging up top. We could break out as early as tomorrow in theory on the utilities if we saw enough buying. I wouldn't expect that, but right now overall, bears are still in control in the shorter term. I think the best way to look at it, broadly speaking, is tomorrow is not the day that it has to start jumping back up. Tomorrow might be the turnaround day, and tomorrow it might just go crazy and hit a new all-time high. But technically, that wouldn't be ideal. So technically, small body candle, turnaround candle, hammer, doji, whatever would be very nice. But right now, the bears, at least to me, are still kind of in control of this little pullback. We got to be patient for our opportunities. For the bulls and for the bears, hey, not going to complain too terribly much about it. Yeah, I saw old Dollar General here today. Good call there, Ilka. Breaking out, continuing to run. Gotta love a good trending stock in the discretionary sector right now. It's been so strong. It's been so strong that, I saw Nordstrom's. They did hit yet another 52-week low, potentially triggering a bearish breakdown. But them notwithstanding, even many of the brick and mortars have held up a little bit better. Of course, that's not who I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Dollar Generals like you, Ilka. Go with the front runners is always my philosophy. But yeah, very nice movement. A little bit of spike in the VIX, right? Today or yesterday, just a little bit of profit taking, no big deal. Today, a second day, well, goodness gracious, that's a big deal. We better see volatility increase a little bit. I don't make anything of that, but I do think it's kind of funny that yesterday, whatever, today, we might need to increase volatility by 8% because a second day in a pullback, but still, the trends are still intact, so I'm not concerned at this point in time. A little bit of profit taking over in the dollar. Again, we're kind of in this range, so you're either playing intraday within this range or doing something else. I don't know. I'm not doing anything really at this point in time. There's lots of resistance levels. We could easily add another one. I think you have to add another one because we saw some pretty serious movement to the downside off of this high from last week. So lots of layers on top, lots of support levels on the bottom. We're sideways, broadly speaking. I think that's where we stay. Intraday, you just, if you're playing it on the intraday, just trade the intraday trend, right? Play that trend. And that's been treating, traders pretty nicely for a while now here over on the dollar. An okay day for gold, working up, kind of kissing our high from last week before kind of calling it a day here. I think if you're super aggressive, as kind of thinking about this, it's not me. I think you could argue from an aggressive perspective that a break of those highs would, and the body of the candle here, because these weren't confirmed, these were just intraday highs, right? It's the two of them that concerns me most. If this was just one, I wouldn't be as scared of 1440. But with two, I am going to put a little more weight into it. Aggressively, I think you could argue a break above this, though, right around 1430, could be a bullish signal. Now, you guys know me. Very rarely does my name, bring up thoughts of being aggressive. I still think it's at 1440, and this is a cash flow area. If 1430 does break, not a whole lot until 1440, though. Could be some room there to look if I'm looking at it from an intraday point of view. Still bullish cash flow, waiting for a clean break before I get too crazy for anything new. But I do think some aggressive traders would argue 1430 versus 1440. I just wouldn't be one of them. Silver, well, there's our follow through, right? And there's our filling up the space. Goodness gracious, I wish I would have been wise enough to know that when it did break 1560, as we kind of talked, I like to break at 1560. I liked it moving to $16. I would be lying through my teeth if I said I expected it in less than a day. But here we are here today, working all the way into that $16 range, coming off the highs. Great break, great strength. We do have some resistance. We're going to go into the weekly time frame. Amazing how quickly that can happen. But right at that 1615, 1616 range, that was a major level of resistance for us. I'll just zoom him out. He will not be straight, but he'll work. That was a major resistance level, double top on the weekly, and a huge sell-off. So we've got to respect that level, in my opinion, as we're going forward. But I mean, what do you say? This is a very, very strong move here on silver. Boy, the last thing I expected was 1560 to 16 in a day. Yeah, it went ham. I mean, it did. It just decided, let's go. Maybe I don't know what it was. Maybe everyone was like me and said, I don't know what you do with silver, but I do think you can buy it if it breaks 1560. Maybe everybody said that, and then it did. We were so tired of not trading silver that we just bought it. I don't know, Ilka, but tremendous movement here today. Keep an eye at that 1615 range. That was a major turning point. May not matter at all this time. The only thing I know for sure is things were looking pretty darn good on silver, in February, right? Strong trend, things are going great, and then it wasn't anymore. And price-wise, 1615 was the number that caused all of those problems, right? So keep an eye on that as we're moving forward. Maybe you need a little pullback. That would be all right, but for any new trades, but certainly a tremendously strong day in silver. You nailed it right there, okay. Over in natural gas, little more downward drift here, just more confirmation. Resistance is very clear. Now we can even go and take away that zone line, right? That zone line from that 250 break, and we can get, our resistance level right above that. Now we know that is where the buyer said, no more, and the seller said, okay, cool, let's just go crazy then. Still very bearish, not much to like from a bullish point of view. From a bearish point of view, lots of things to like, right? Looking at that weekly, just another day, another big red candle off of last week's doji at the old breakdown point. Pretty darn bearish right now over in nat gas. And crude got caught up in some selling along with the energy here today. 56, definitely something I think we can keep our eyes on here. And hey, Whitney, good to see you, my friend. I saw your post over in the clubhouse. Congratulations, sir. Working at this 56, this is something that I think is worth keeping an eye. If this thing breaks, that is pretty darn bearish of a signal. Maybe not to get into a new trade, but certainly I'm going to zoom into a 4-hour chart so we can kind of just look at this from a little shorter term perspective. We've already kind of, tried to, break that short-term trend, haven't taken out the previous swing low, which is where that 56 finds us. But if that breaks, that is a violation of the trend. Whether that's a new place to get in as a bear, I don't know. I expect it to fight. I do expect that 56 level of support to put up a fight. And if I had to bet blankly, if I had to make a trade right now, I'd bet bullish. Thankfully, I don't have to. So, but I do expect that to hold. If that breaks, though, we've got 54 probably, this 54, 55 range that we kind of hung around. There's really not a lot of support until that. And then it's all of a sudden 50 is very much in play if that gives out. So keep an eye on 56. I can understand the argument if we get some nice signals to buy off at 56. They won't be tomorrow. It could break 56 tomorrow, but I don't think, tomorrow by the end of the day, we might have some signals, but I don't think we can get them as of right now. Looking at the hourly chart, you can kind of see that we're still very much, on the bears are very much in control, still well below the short-term averages. Need to kind of recapture that 9 before we can even start talking about holding support, at least for me. So that is where we find ourselves there. I know, Whitney, you brought up old big here. A little bit of a rally back into, that's going to be an interesting one. If we see some new signals right in here at this breakdown point, I'm not opposed to, looking at another entry personally on big. A little bit of a rally so far, and certainly going with the flow. Still looking pretty darn bearish after that major break. I'm not stressing it, but certainly wish it would have went down today. I won't lie. I would have rather it not benefited from the strength of the sector here today, all things being equal. On the interesting name front, if you guys have anything interesting, feel free to throw it in chat. We'll take a quick peek at it. Hershey followed through very nicely with that breakout. Some nice movement over there. We looked at EA, EQIX, another REIT just kind of hanging, not quite there yet. It's trying. APA breaking down. FRC fighting back here today. This is an interesting battle on FRC, in my opinion. Another breakout candidate we looked at yesterday, MSCI, still kind of knocking on the door. TTLT just still hanging around doing nothing. You would expect it to do something. Roku did kind of have a little bit of a consolidation here today. Do this for a few more days and then break to the upside Monday. That would be okay. Still have some time before earnings. Through CME out on the tackle trading Twitter, got a couple weeks till earnings, but you can kind of see it looks like trying to establish some support at that old breakout point. We looked at Wheaton. That was just a tremendous break over on Wheaton Precious Metals, formerly known as Silver Wheaton, for any of you who were trading 5 years ago or so. And we looked at Merck. So more of the same going into tomorrow. Big day on earnings, though, so keep that in mind. We can definitely have that impact, not just the stock, but as we saw in railroads, it can impact. And Netflix having a bad report, we're going to have IBM have a lot better report. I don't know. That might impact the XLC ETF, but also technology overall. Because while technically it is an XLC, a lot of people think Netflix, they think tech stocks. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of an impact that has on tomorrow's open. Going into tomorrow, just like I said, I'm not expecting tomorrow to be the day that the bulls come charging back in. Nothing on the short-term chart lets me believe that. That may change throughout the course of the day. It may, it may change in the futures market, right? But as of right now, going into tomorrow's open, should expect the pullback is still kind of going on. At least that's how I will be dealing with it going into tomorrow. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the market recap here tonight. But as always, guys, it is certainly my pleasure. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for joining me. Always more fun to do this with you guys than on my own. And thanks to all of those of you who catch it a little later in the day. I know it's at a weird time. I know my routine is weird. But we appreciate you guys catching a little later in the afternoon as well. We've got our bear market survival guide tonight. Is that right? I believe it's bear market survival guide going on here tonight for our pro members over at Tackle Trading here. So those of you who are a member, have a great time over there. We did get Marriott over on the Tackle Instagram. So if you haven't had a chance to head over to Tackle's Instagram to check out the analysis on Marriott, I would definitely take a couple of minutes and head on over, check that out. Of course, you would always encourage you to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Join us at Tackle Trading on Twitter. You can, of course, find me at FrankMartin23 on Twitter if you're ever trying to find me. And we'll go to bed then, Ilka, midnight. Goodness gracious. Well, you're a trooper, my friend. So good luck getting used to that jet lag, and even more so when you get back home. So have a good trip, buddy. Thank you guys so much. It is my pleasure. I appreciate you guys, each and every one of you. You guys make this a lot of fun for me. So thank you. I should always be the one thanking you guys, no doubt about it. So keep up the good work, guys. We'll get right back into it here tomorrow afternoon. We'll see where this one takes us. I think we are hoping for another little bit of a drift down, then a little bit of a small body candle on Friday, at least That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see if I get it. So thanks a lot, guys. Get out of here. Have a fantastic Wednesday afternoon. I will see you all same time, place here tomorrow. Bye, everybody.